Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our continuing discussion on the issue of superimmunity. The next group that we're going to be looking at with respect to this superimmunity dynamic is Israel. Now, what we're going to be seeing in Israel is that there are contrasts in terms of immunity. You have certain groups of people in Israel that appear to have a normal vulnerability with respect to the current situation. And then you have another group that has what would be considered super immunity. As a matter of fact, it's probably the highest immunity that is out there with respect to the CCR5 Delta mutation. This first article is coming out of the Department of Integrative Biology, and this is University of California, Berkeley. This is from 2005. This article is about the geographic spread of the CCR5 Delta 32 HIV resistance allele. Now, some researchers indicate that there's a higher frequency of this mutation in the Northeast. Some, however, indicate that there is a higher mutation frequency in the Northwest in terms of Europe. And so you have those samples from the Baltic region, you have Sweden, Finland, Estonia. Lithuania is a region that has a high frequency in terms of relative frequency. And so you also have some high numbers in France and in some Russian cities. However, what is noted is that the Ashkenazi Jews have the highest frequency, bar none. There's a belief that this is due to some sort of founder effect that is unique to their specific history. If you remember our prior discussion, we talked about how that time period around 2005 was a time period wherein there were increased public conversations about this mutation. There was a specific conversation about this particular group, and this is elevated frequencies of the mutant allele Delta 32 at the CCR5 gene in Ashkenazic Jews. One thing that came out was an assertion that this suggested that there was a disconnect between those individuals and the people who have been in the Palestinian area for a very long time. So there were some genetic distinctions that suggested a disconnect between the people. So you had all of these similarities, genetic similarities between the people in the area. And then when certain groups moved into the area with the assumption that this was the origin of the people, the genetics were not the same. And this is one of those genetic dynamics where you have this variance going on. And so again, the frequencies are very elevated in this particular group in contrast to other groups who identify as Jewish. And here, this research is just pointing out that high frequency that we were just talking about with respect to the Lithuanian population. And here you are looking at 25.9%. This is an extremely high percent in terms of this mutation, in terms of this protective factor. Again, there is this mention of the founder effect, believing that that explains these elevated numbers. And these numbers are not only elevated in relation to other people who are identifying as Jewish, these numbers are elevated in relation to other Europeans. And this is essentially another rendition of the same article. And so what they are looking at are these allele frequencies in Ashkenazi Jews. This is coming from the Center of Neurogenetics out of Paris, France. And so they are looking at the populations of Jews that came from Eastern European origin. And so they looked at 7 geographic groups. And again, they found this high frequency, particularly in the Lithuanian group. As you can see, this issue, this concern has been going on for a while. So there has been this tracing of these different Israeli ethnic groups and doing this comparing and contrasting with respect to this immunity. So this is from 1999, and this is coming out of the Journal of Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndromes and Human Retrovirology. And so what you see here, and this is coming out of a medical center, and this is in Tel Aviv, Israel. And what they are looking at here is the distribution of the CCR5 gene mutation in Israeli ethnic groups. So even back in 1999, they knew that the Ashkenazi Jews had the highest Delta 32 frequency. So they had that highest level of immunity. And this is a very high number because you're talking about 1 out of 5. And in some instances with the Lithuanians, you're talking about 1 out of 4. So these are high percentages. This is extremely high given the fact that there have been many, many complaints about these high numbers coming out of Israel. When you have this high level of immunity with this particular group, it brings into question where these high numbers are coming from. Is it really coming from the ultra-Orthodox group, or is there some other dynamic at play here? But you have an extremely high level of immunity in Israel, which brings into question again what's going on with the reporting of these extremely high numbers with this high level of immunity, an immunity that far surpasses that of most places around the world. And so you also have some information here where they are doing contrasting of other groups of Jews. So there's contrasting with North African Jews, Middle Eastern Jews, and Ethiopian Jews. And here we have another early article. This is from 2001, and this is from Human Immunology, and you can find this in the National Library of Medicine. What you see here is a look at the evolution of this mutation based on haplotype variation in Jewish and Northern European populations. This is coming from the School of Public Health, University of California, Berkeley again. These researchers are again looking at this deletion mutation dynamic, and they are indicating that those with this mutation are highly protected against HIV-1 infection. There is also an HIV-2 infection, by the way. And so what they are finding again is that you have a group of people, a discrete group of people that have this high level of immunity with respect to not only HIV, but a number of microbes and a number of health dynamics. And so there again is this idea of this super immunity, this immunity that is above and beyond what would be expected in the population. This concludes our look at the super immunity dynamic in Israel. Remember, knowledge is power. Take care. See you soon.